Hello, and welcome to the Matching Mom Jeans podcast. My name is Shelby.
I'm Nicole, and I was kind of excited about today. So we talked a lot last week about um, just surviving, but it got me thinking a lot about like different tools of the trade per se around parenthood. And you and I have very different tools that are helpful. I mean, like I would argue that we do not have a lot of overlap, and it just really is fascinating to me how vast the options are. And also what you're
Well,
told you may need isn't necessarily true.
I know it absolutely kills me. Like when we're talking about tools, we're talking about like baby gear and classes and like all sorts of things. And it
Yeah,
absolutely
books.
kills me to see people put out like this is the end all be all. This is the top 10 things that we need. Like now don't get me wrong. I love it when an influencer goes through and they're like, my baby is 6 months old today. Here is what was on my registry that I have actually used. Those, those are the most informative videos. But the, babylist.com top 10 registered things or whatever, like nothing. That means nothing to
Well,
me.
and like for us, it was super strange, obviously, because we have other children. And so, like, even when we were doing baby registry, like, we had on there a booster seat car seat for my stepson because
Hmm.
his baby car seat, he was about to grow out of his baby car seat, so we needed a booster seat. We didn't need to buy a brand new baby car seat. And
Right.
so like, and it was really
I
wonderful
went
and
to a
someone gave
baby
us that, but it's
sprinkle.
like it's real, dude.
I was
Baby
invited to a baby
sprinkle.
sprinkle this weekend. Yeah, they're called sprinkles when you have your second child. But I was invited to a baby sprinkle this weekend, and on the registry was like a toddler bed for their toddler because they're going to be using the crib for their infant that's coming.
I have
And I was like,
never
that is
owned a
so
crib.
smart. Okay, here, that's the thing. We could just
I've
start there with the
never
tools
owned
because
a
my
crib.
my daughter has slept. She has napped in her crib every day of her life.
See, that's
Okay?
amazing and not real.
It is
At
too
least not
real.
at least
No,
not
I
for
mean,
my boys.
okay, we're
So,
not counting contact naps, but let's be honest. Most contact naps are for us sick, teething, or mama's anxiety means she has to hold the baby the whole time and read her Kindle because she doesn't
yeah.
want to do anything else vibes.
Well, see, so we had a bedside bassinet that
Which we did not
attached
have.
to the side of my side of the bed so I could just roll over and breastfeed, which is a whole other thing. Like that's a whole other side of tools of the trade that you need. And if you're not breastfeeding, you don't need all those things. And
Right? We
if
were formula from day one, so, like, my must-have formula item is a formula pitcher that goes in the fridge.
see, I
You
don't
probably
need
don't
that.
even know what that looks like. Could not picture that, could you?
Well, and honestly, he never really did bottles either. So there was a ton of baby gear that was just unnecessary. I remember giving you some bottles. I remember selling some bottles, giving them away. But like, so he had his bassinet for like, I kid you not, like 5 months. And when they set up for the first time, you can't use the bassinet anymore because it's
Right.
got such low sides. And so, like, we would push it around with laundry in it so that I could fold laundry while standing because I baby
Fair.
wore him all the time. And like, we just switched to like him being safely in our bed. And now he has a floor bed, which means I can get up and down and get with him. And it's just like one of those things where like with our almost 6-year-old, we also did not have a crib. Like he traveled back and forth between his two households. And so he traveled with a pack and play. I do think he may have had a crib at the other household, but like for him, for like stability and like safety feeling, like he slept in his same pack and play no matter where we were. And it
Oh,
was a really big deal before
and
he
that is, like,
transitioned
one of
to a
the
big
things
bed.
that I would come really close to saying, I don't know how people survive without a pack and play because
I don't know because even
my
though
child slept okay, let's back it up. Let's recap. So, my husband and I, when my child was born, and for the majority of her life, were two parents who worked outside of the home. She is our only child. She will be 18 months old at the end of this week as we are
ooh,
recording
I didn't
this.
think about
And
that.
so a year and a half old. Um, it's just the three of us humans in a house and a dog. just for perspective sakes. Now, do yours.
Oh.
Oh,
uh,
and she was formula fed, slept in her crib or in her pack and play in our room. She slept in her pack and play in our room until she was almost 8 months old. We do sound machine, we do blackout curtains, we did formula bottles. She takes a pacifier to this day, and I will fight you if you say anything negative about her walking around with a pacifier in your mouth.
no, she's very cute
Sleep
with her
stacks
pacifier.
for life.
See, okay, so
There.
then yeah, and then the perspective here is like, um, it was me, my husband, a cat lived in our house at that point. Two cats technically, but one of them yeeted himself into the out of doors. Um, and then, but right before the baby came. So then we had a cat in the house. Then we had a almost 4-year-old, a um, almost 18-year-old, or yes, almost 18-year-old, and then a newborn in our house. So, and then when, let's see, so my stepson goes back and forth, but has his own room, all of that stuff. So, the biggest change when he's here versus not here is like just activities and like food. Because like we have more people around. And then Rory went to college when my youngest was like almost a year and a half old. So we
Okay. So
went from like,
you got a lot of in and out of your house. You've got a lot of
yeah. And
flexibility there.
so
You
and so
got a lot going
because
on. You
we
also live in a two-story house, which I think
3-story.
makes a
It's
bigger
3
difference.
stories, which makes a really big difference because
Basements don't count.
basements don't count.
That's a structural thing. Okay. As a civil
Okay.
engineer, I'm in charge of
2
this.
story is
Basements don't
fine.
count as a story.
Okay. Well, yeah, so 2-story and all of the bedrooms except for the like main one, which is mine and my husband's, are upstairs. So like we couldn't
Right.
necessarily do a nursery because I am not able to climb the stairs. I've been in physical therapy for 2 years and I've just started doing the stairs. So that my youngest could do a floor bed in his room. Um so there's kind of that. So like I I was breastfeeding. My son never took a passy, which was one of the most heartbreaking things that's ever happened to me.
Right.
um,
Because patsies really are life.
well, and otherwise, I'm the passy, and I don't love that experience. We never really could get him to do bottles, so we ended up giving all of our breast milk to you because he's not interested in reheated breast milk.
Which
Um,
we so appreciated.
yeah, but we just have like the weirdest, like we were constantly moving around with military and trainings, and so it's just very different how the environment that your child is existing in and the environment you're parenting in have to move with the tools that you're doing. So like
Oh,
we
yeah.
so like prior to having a third child in our house, we had to do prep work with like I did a lot of courses of like how to introduce a baby to the older siblings, how to get the older sibling to not hate the baby. I
Yeah.
did
Well, I read a book on how to introduce your dog to your baby. So, ha.
I still think that's
A whole book.
I probably should have read a book on how to introduce my cat to my baby because she took it into her own hands and just left.
Your cat just went, peace. The baby can have the house. I'm done. Thanks.
Yep, I
But
surrender.
I think that one of the best pieces of advice I was given when we were pregnant, back when we were registering, was that like if it works for you, then it works best.
Yeah, I think that's such a good statement because like the truth is that it has worked for us. And there are certain things where like I could not have done what I've done without them. So like I've now breastfed he's over 2 years old. And so like that is like the CDC whatever so pediatric association whatever. That's their
I
recommendation.
think the World Health Organization recommends 2 years at this point.
Yes, they do. And so it was a big motivator for me.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
by the way.
It was a it was a big motivator for me. But it's interesting. I wasn't motivated out of a lot of the health things. I was motivated because with my disability, I would not be able to get out of bed in the middle of the night safely and make formula and bring it to the baby. And I have such big mobility issues that I knew that it was going to be a big difference. So we had to do breastfeeding to accommodate, like breastfeeding had to be successful. And because of that, I did 5 courses on breastfeeding. and I bought 3
Whoa.
books. I
I didn't even know
considered
that.
I considered taking the lactation consultant test
I'm just gonna be a lactation consultant for
because
myself.
because I was like, I have done so much. I mean, I took
Think of how
3
much that
wait,
was
hang on.
wasted the day that I called you and was like, "Hey, guess what? I've decided I'm not even gonna try to breastfeed. I'm going
Not gonna
straight to formula
lie.
day 1."
Not gonna lie, I was so sad because I already had a notebook written out with all my notes, and I was like, "I'm just gonna give this to her, and she's gonna love it."
And I was like, "No.
Nope, it's not
No,
happening.
ma'am.
So then I was like
Not at all."
"Please take my breast milk away from me because my husband wants rid of it."
And that was huge for us because that was at the time when my daughter was born, COVID cases were rising and spiking,
Yeah,
and
and you really
you
couldn't
were
donate.
vaccinated
Yeah.
when we got that breast milk, and so you literally gifted antibodies, anti as in
Anti-antibodies.
AUNTI.
That's so cute.
Anti-antibodies. We called it anti-milk because we called
Yeah,
formula milk, and our daughter grew to know what that meant and what that tasted like, but then we called it
yeah,
anti-milk. Um, and it was just, it was such a blessing in our lives. And I truly, I have a science-based background, biological engineering degree. I know the benefits of breast milk.
yeah.
I also know the benefits of formula, and in our family, that was the best thing for us.
Exactly, and it's all about, like, the mental health of it, like, there are so many people who are so against bed sharing, and there are very unsafe ways to bed share, and there are very safe ways to bed share, and there's a lot of interesting statistics. I read a whole bunch of, like, research on it. There's a lot of, statistics around the fact that if you're not a breastfeeding mother, it can be unsafe to bed share because as a
Hmm,
breastfeeding mother, you're getting roused a lot more because the baby is nursing throughout the night instead of at like set intervals. And so you're
okay.
never fully sleeping deeply. There was some really cool stuff about that. So it was one of those things where it's like sometimes the tools and the choices that you're making lead you down a flow chart that kind of guides other things. For instance, now that my youngest is upstairs, we're doing a lot more like night weaning and moving towards, different sleep associations and things like that. We're not brushing our teeth in the morning, we're brushing our teeth at night kind of thing, like little
Right.
things to adjust to new patterns.
You're having to make
Um
those adjustments now as opposed to some of those adjustments are things that my daughter has
yeah.
literally just done her entire
And
life.
then there's the things that don't work. Like I didn't want to buy a sound machine, but in my room we have a standing fan, like one of those
You are
big
so
white
anti-sound machine for
oscillating fan.
no reason.
No, so here's the reason I'm anti
Why
sound
do you
machine.
hate the
I bought
ocean?
one.
You and my husband both.
I no, I bought one. I bought a standing free sound machine for my stepson when he was like 2. And it for some reason was so sensitive to the touch that it would switch on and off certain times, like if a blanket threw it, like if you walked by it too hard.
What?
And it was like it was a
You
poorly
get
made
one
sound machine.
haunted sound machine.
And it just burned me for the rest of my life. No, so we use like a big white oscillating fan. And so when we moved
The
the
kind
little one
that's like,
upstairs,
"Shh."
yes. There you go. ASMR. True ASMR right there.
I don't even know if that's gonna come across, but all I could think about as soon as you said that it oscillates, I was like, "Oh, I get
Yes,
it."
exactly. But yeah, so we were like, okay, well, we don't want a fan that he can pull over on himself in the room, so we're going to use like a Google Home, um, and play white noise. Well, I found out yesterday that the reason that he has been sleeping less and waking earlier than he usually does is because Google Homes only play white noise for 12 hours and then they turn off automatically. And
Amazing.
there's an entire Reddit thread about it where people are like,
Whatever you
"Why?"
choose to do for your child, make sure you've read the fine print. That's
Yes,
what the moral of that story
exactly.
is.
Because it's been like 2 weeks of like, what is wrong with him? He's so tired.
That's
Um,
so funny. See,
And so
we
so last night was his first night with the big oscillating fan in his room. Not only did he not touch it because he knows not to touch it in the downstairs room, but he also slept for 14 hours. I win.
Oh my gosh, that is so much sleep. That
Well,
is so much sleep.
he does still wake once in the night for like 30
Okay,
minutes to nurse. So I mean, it's not straight, but like for somebody who's been overtired for 2 weeks, like I feel like he was like catching up cuz his
man,
normal nights are about 13, but he sleeps.
that's that's not
It's
always
in the
the vibe at our
genes.
house. And that's the other thing though. Like, that's the other thing I didn't know is and the pediatrician has always been really, really, really good and kind to me about this, is she's like, "Listen, some people sleep and some people don't, and you're born that way."
Oh
Because
no.
my daughter just has never been great at sleeping, and I've always wondered if it's, like, her sleep associations or her pacifier
It might
or
just be
if it
genetics.
is
You
the
were
sound
kind of a
machine or
bad
whatever.
sleeper.
I've been a terrible sleeper. I only
I'm
sleep
an
as well as I do
excellent
now, and I
sleeper.
say as well as I do now as somebody who gets up anywhere from 1 to 5 times a night to soothe a baby, but I consider that good sleep because
Yeah,
I'm
that's
able to
rough.
fall asleep afterwards and not be up for an hour, but I have always slept terrible
My husband's a
until I
horrible
started
sleeper
taking
too.
magnesium supplements.
Yeah.
But you know
There's your
what? You
tool.
know what we have learned? There's a tool. Talk to
There's
a
your tool
doctor about
right
whether or not you
there.
might be missing some nutrients. Um,
A brief commercial break to talk about magnesium.
for real, I could
Have
talk
you
about it
have you heard
for
about
some
my Lord
non.
my Lord and Savior magnesium? No, but for real, like it's one
Magnesium
of
and
those
sound
things.
machines. But also,
Like,
I do sleep better with the sound machine.
yeah,
I
I
was
do too.
afraid
I
I
can't
wouldn't be
sleep
able
without a
to
fan.
sleep. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to sleep with the sound machine. And so when I was pregnant, I made my husband start getting used to it
Ooh, that's smart.
because I knew that when we brought the baby home, we wanted her to sleep in our room. Because I was afraid she was just, I wouldn't
They're
be
too
able to hear
they're
that
they're
blood
too
curdling
small to be out
scream.
there in the world by themselves.
That is true too. You
It's like
know what?
putting
That's true.
we don't even put loaves of bread in grocery bags with other food. Why would we put a loaf of bread-sized human alone in the house?
I always feel really, really, really guilty about the fact that she sleeps in her room now. And I'm just going to put this out
Nah.
into the universe and she's going to listen to this podcast one day. But there are days where, like, she wakes up in the middle of the night upset, and I'm like, I get it. Mom, dad, and the dog are all in the other room, and you're in that room by yourself. It's not
Oh,
fair.
yeah, that's a big one.
I'm
That's a
trying to
big one
train
is
the
like
dog to
I
sleep
had
in
a
her room so that it's a 50-50 split.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, no, I had a really interesting this was a long time ago. I had like
This
a
is
Facebook
so
argument with
derailing.
somebody. It is derailing. I had a Facebook argument one time with somebody who was like, "Children have to sleep by themselves. You should not be bunking." Oh, and it was an argument because my two oldest, Rory and my stepson, had shared a room on a trip. And obviously, I mean, we're talking like a 3-year-old boy and what, like a 16-year-old girl. So yeah, 16-year-old girl. Or non-binary individual at this point, but was identifying as a girl at that point. Sorry, Rory. But it was somebody was just like, I cannot believe that with the age difference and I was like, I mean, I feel like if you ask them, they'd be like, well, it's not fair. We have to sleep all by ourselves, and mom and dad always get to sleep together. Like,
Right?
you get a constant sleepover, and they don't get one. It's
I
very unfair.
know. It makes you feel sad for them. And so, yeah, yeah.
Such a
Now that
derailment. I
we
love
are
it.
transitioning to the floor bed, and sometimes my daughter wants us to lay down with her at night,
Do you love
um,
it?
I'm like, you know what? I get it. I get it.
Do
There's a
you
little
feel
snuggles.
do you feel less at risk of being one of those TikTok moms that falls headfirst into the crib? Because that was another big problem for me with the crib
Oh,
slash pack and play
oh,
situation is it was real hard to get out of that thing.
I have whacked my elbow so hard on a
I
crib
hit
and not
I
been
hit
able
my
to
head
say
one time.
anything because I'm laying down a sleeping baby and I don't want to wake her up. And so she's sleeping and there's just a I
Oh
crumpled to the floor. And I wish so our monitor doesn't record. That's
oh,
one thing.
I
It's like
love that mine I love that
we
mine records.
forewent. I think forewent is the way to forego, but in the past tense,
Forwent.
forewent.
Foregone. It was a foregone conclusion that
I don't
we
know. We skipped the monitor that recorded in exchange for a monitor that did not require Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's valid. That's very
Because
valid. Ours requires Wi-Fi, so I get that.
one, we live in the middle of town where people do hack into each other's Wi-Fis.
Yikes!
And at the
Why?
time that I was pregnant, people were hacking into each other's Ring cameras, and I was just not about that
No.
life. You know what I mean? And so I'm
No.
like, I'm not doing that hackable crib
I hope somebody
talking to the baby,
I hope
terrifying
somebody
things.
hacks into my chicken cam and talks to my chickens at night. Go ahead.
That'd be
It's
so
it's
amazing.
labeled chicken cam. There's also one called raccoon cam, but don't scare the raccoons away.
You need them to scare the raccoons away.
Just go,
But you
ah!
know what I mean? And so it doesn't record, but if it could record, the number of times that it would record me or my husband basically lamenting life on the floor of her room, trying not to let out a sound. It was, I mean, it would be, we would have our whole like hall of shame
So
that we
I
would
wish
save those videos.
I would never do this because there's no reason. Well, there's nothing embarrassing about this, but I maybe one day when he's older I'll ask him. But we have 3 different videos of my stepson falling out of bed. And
Great.
there he's never hurt, so it's great. But at the same time, he is always dead asleep when it happens. So you hear thunk. And then he just quietly gets up, gets back up on the bed, and falls back to sleep. And the
You know,
comedic humor around that
as
situation is so funny. I watch it
as
on
someone who
repeat
has
sometimes.
done that before,
Okay.
that's the thing. That's the thing is I myself have fallen out of bed before.
I to just be like, don't look at me. I can't. Oh man.
Exactly. And my husband's just
I
like,
don't know. I
you
say that
good?
I totally say that maybe that should be a tool of the trade for you. I think that you should have a recording baby monitor, especially as your daughter moves into toddlerhood. Because last night we got
I
a video
know.
on my baby monitor. Because, of course, I'm a star of the baby monitor because I am always there with my son, and I'm usually the one making noise.
You
And
know
last
those whole
night,
like campaigns to get the moms in the frame, get the moms in the videos and
I'm in
pictures.
the
You're always
frame.
there. You're just asleep.
Exactly. Last night there was a video that my baby monitor recorded. You have tears in your eyes. You okay?
This took a turn and I was not prepared.
Last night it recorded my son waking up in the middle of the night, standing up and falling face first onto my chest, into the organs that live on my chest, and going, ah, booby milk, and going right back to sleep. And I was like, that is perfect. So beautiful.
That's
But there's also so many videos of me singing go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep right now, baby. Because I've given up on like any melody and I'm just like, get it out of here.
oh my gosh,
So
that's so funny.
I
Okay,
highly recommend
so
it.
baby monitors, beds, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, you gotta do what works for you and what is most hilarious because motherhood is hard and you need to laugh every once in a while.
And you really, I mean, you really do need to get one that records toddlerhood and young. I mean, we still have a baby monitor that is only on at night, of course, for my stepson. And we do get some very funny things from that baby monitor too.
Yeah, I can imagine
Especially because he
so.
wakes up first thing in the morning and goes, is anyone awake?
Just
We're like,
checking.
just like out into the void. My favorite is when they learn that they can turn and look at the baby monitor and then like stare you down or talk to you.
Yes, now she's
Like,
18 months
please
old,
leave
but
me
she hasn't
alone.
figured that out yet.
That's good.
But
So
I know babies younger than her that have.
I have an important PSA, and you told me about this, and I did not listen. So you were telling me something important about like silicone plates and like bacteria, maybe, or stink, or anyways.
So,
I put a silicone placemat in my dishwasher 2
oh
days
no.
ago, And there must have been something in my dishwasher that had like garlic smell in it. But
Ew.
all I know is that this placemat may have to die because
So
it has made my dishwasher, the whole thing, everything in my dishwasher now smells like that garlic. And I can't get this silicone to stop smelling like it. And I don't remember what you were telling me about silicone, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to own anything silicone ever again.
no, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. Whatever product you choose for yourself, you have to know the fine print. You have to read the fine print on these products, okay? Food grade silicone is so good for you. It's great. It's awesome. It's also porous. So
That's not a good word.
when it just
Porous.
means the surface isn't completely sealed, okay? So when it gets heated, like in a dishwasher, which basically
Oh no.
steams things to sanitize them, which is good. You want it to because it doesn't trap stuff like so if you microwave some plastics, they will like open up and then close back. And then there's
Ew.
stuff in there just going bad. You know what I
Is that how
mean?
you get the weird spaghetti stains in plastic Tupperware?
Probably.
Is that what happens?
Yeah.
Okay. I have questions.
So, fun fact, you can spaghetti stain silicone
Oh
because we spaghetti
no.
stained my daughter's bottles because we have the Boone bottles that are all it's just a plastic holder that holds together two silicone pieces and your child's milk never touches the plastic. It's all silicone. You can sanitize it in the dishwasher, everything like that. Okay, like these things are made to not break down in the dishwasher. That does not mean that they are not like opening and closing in the dishwasher, essentially, like the surface of them aren't. And one day we opened the dishwasher, we had had spaghetti the night before,
Oh no.
and like six of the bottles, all yellow, hideous,
Ew.
awful. And like, here's the thing according to the CDC, those are sterilized.
Yeah,
You
because
can
they're
use them that
so
way. It's
they're
not going to hurt anything. However, poster child over here for postpartum depression and anxiety was convinced that the CDC didn't know what they were talking about.
I think
So
every mother enters that phase where you're like, poison control said this and they're wrong.
right?
And
I
you're
know
like,
my
no,
child. That's when
back
you
it
start
up.
going down you start going down the lane called I know my child.
Oh yeah,
If you go
there's
too far
a
down that lane, it turns really quick into crazy lane. And you got
yeah,
to back yourself back up.
there's only so far you can go down
You
that
got to
lane
you got to
before
watch for
somebody
it to
needs
turn
to
into a
really
dirt
kick
road.
you in.
We're getting off the county lanes, okay? We're getting off the county roads here.
The
But
government doesn't go that far. Come back.
exactly. Exactly. But so I was like really, really concerned about it. So I I took a lot of chemistry in college, so I can get a stain out of anything, and it's
That's
like become kind of a
horrifying.
joke between me and my friends. My husband likes to test my abilities by dropping things in his lap all the time. Um, so I'm always getting stains out of his clothes. But I knew that I could treat the stains in that silicone using UV. So
Oh,
what I
see, okay,
did, and
yes,
you could do this with yours
my
too,
husband is
is
obsessed about this with the water table. He was like, "Just put it in the sun. The UV will help." And I was like, "Are you sure?" But it is. It's not scummy
so
at
okay,
all.
UV is not going to do it all though.
Oh, I know. You Lysol it, and then
So
you wipe it down, and then
water,
you UV it.
I cleaned the silicone using water, Dawn dish soap. If it works for ducks, it works for us. Water, Dawn dish soap, and
Also,
vinegar, and
also,
then put it in the sun, and they were completely bleached and fine after the afternoon.
do you think that Dawn knows that the ducks have convinced us?
Oh, I
Because
know.
after
If it
those
can
duck
degrease some
commercials,
ducks, it
I'm
can
happy.
decrease anything.
I used Dawn dish soap on
They
the
don't even
chicken that had the
always know
wound
what kind
because
of they don't even
it's
always
okay
know
for
what
ducks.
kind of ducks they're cleaning. Like they don't even know where all of those pollutants came from. You know what I mean? Like if they can get an unidentified grossness off of a wild animal, then it can get the spaghetti stain out of a bottle.
So we're adding that to the list of tools.
Dawn dish
Oh,
soap, absolutely.
actually, no joke. That will get grease splatter out of your clothes,
I
which is
mean,
important
anything
if
that's a
you make as
degreaser is
much.
going to help like that.
It's important if you make as many like homemade chicken nuggets as I do. there's there's a lot of splatter happening, and I don't always grab an apron. Um, no, but
So
seriously,
funny.
so But here's an interesting thing, and this was something that you and I were talking about like literally not too long ago, because we are doing like a potty training course with my youngest, because even though we have already potty trained an individual, we want a refresher, because I personally feel like I have trauma left over from that experience, and I need to push through that. And so, but as like a parenting educator, like I am making courses, I am and doing this, and I have really enjoyed going through that process and looking at things from all angles, and asking yourself, will this process work for this type of mom? Will this process work for a single parent? Will this process work for two parents who are working outside of the home and have a nanny? Like, what can implement this? And I think that like living in the internet age has just blown open parenthood. And I do
Oh, yeah.
think,
The door is
I
wide open. There's almost too much information out
well,
there.
that's what I was going to say. I think that too much information can be really overwhelming. I think that too many opinions can be really confusing and overwhelming. But if you can do introspection, which we talked about just the other day, about like finding your why and what you want for your child, then, and it's a privilege to do this, then if you have time to dig through some of that too much information, you can really find what it is you're looking for and what it is you're wanting to do. And one of my favorite things as like a professional is to like do that research for a family and then say like, here's our situation, here's what's wrong, and then digging through that for them. um
Mm.
and I am kind of obsessed with finding people for people. So like if I have a client, like finding their Instagram match and
Oh my
being
gosh.
like, pay attention to this page
That's
or
the Bumble
go
I
through
need.
these
I don't
highlights. Yeah.
need Bumble BFF. I need a Bumble influencer. Somebody who wears the same size as me, has a similar lifestyle, has kids the same age. I
Connect
need
with me,
Bumble
please.
influencer.
Well, but I mean, but the truth is, and you know this because you live, I would say something that I would totally give so many things for, which is to have friends in person in your area who have kids who are the same age.
Oh yeah.
Like I
The
have
gal the
friends
gal
who,
gang gets me through.
yeah, like I have friends who have kids with different ages. I have friends who have kids of similar ages who live far away from me, and then I have friends who like don't have kids at all. And so like my social circle is kind of like a Venn diagram that looks like one of those weird loopy things. What'd you say? And I
And
have
you have
you.
me.
Are we friends? What? This is brand new information. I thought we were
Some days.
roommates.
We are friends some days.
But no, I mean, I do think that like even if you don't have direct access to someone, which it would be a huge tool for people because you can ask other parents. But like you and I have a friend who went through pregnancy all the way up and like still has contact with the people who are the same age as her son now that her son is 9,
So
and
cool.
like was
It's so
able
cool.
to like not only compare pregnancy things, which I think is more common even than comparing like newborn things. I think there's a lot of like direct questioning in the first year where you're like, my kid
I
is
think
doing
there's just
this,
a
is
lot
this
more time
okay
for communication and introspection
during
when you're
pregnancy?
pregnant than there
Because
is when you
you're
are
stuck
chasing a
inside
toddler.
your brain. You're
I
stuck
I
inside
talk
your brain.
I have 3 mom friends that live close enough and or I talk to every single day. We all have children within 9 weeks of each other,
Which is
and there
Monter.
are still some times where I'm like, and you guys, I can't even take it. She did XYZ today. And they're like, oh, so and so did this last week. Here's how we handled it. And I'm like, why didn't you mention it? And she's like, because that was the day that somebody else was having blah, blah, blah happen. And it was
Yeah.
just like, we didn't even get around to that conversation. Like, there's on any given day, my toddler goes through so many emotions and does so many things that there's no way I could communicate them all. If you aren't here, you weren't part of it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's true. And I mean, there are things that like you will be talking about, and I'll be like, oh, have you tried this? And it's like, I may have known that since, you know, the 6-year-old was 2, but I
For
didn't ever
reals.
think to give it to you as information.
Nope.
your,
You sure don't.
your face.
How many times have you been like, well, why didn't you try blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, why didn't I know that existed?
Well, and I do that. I mean, again, like just coming from different backgrounds, like I have a degree in child development and psychology. And so
I
there
know.
are times, though where I ask myself, why didn't you remember that? And then I'm like, oh, college was like 12 years ago.
I've
Or I
slept
guess,
since then, or
I
more
guess
accurately, not slept since then.
it wasn't 12 years ago though. When was it? It's the opposite. It was
It's
15
it's
and now it's
the
23.
opposite.
So it wasn't we didn't graduate. I thought we were graduated in 2013 and it was 2025, which would have been 12 years, but
It's
instead we
been
graduated
it's
in
been 8
2015.
years. It's been
Yes, there
8
we go.
years since we
See,
graduated.
I had the numbers
I
backwards.
just love how you said the other way. You were adding instead of subtracting. Is that what you were?
Well, yeah, it was kind
That
of
doesn't
I
work
had
anymore.
numbers.
This is gonna make our podcast not relatable for people who do Common Core math because that's not how they do math anymore.
Okay, so speaking of tools, I went to a
I thought you were
used
about to go
bookstore.
speaking of Common Core, and I was like, no.
No,
Um,
no, speaking of Comic Con. No, actually, so speaking of tools, like I have children who are learning at different paces than their schools are teaching. I have one child who is very quickly becoming aware of like how good he is at math. And then I have my 2-year old who is obsessed with the idea of phonics. And I don't know how to teach those things. Like, I know how to keep children alive. I know how to take care of their mental health. I don't know how to teach. And so, like, I went to a used bookstore and lucked out that they had a huge homeschooling workbook for free table. And I was able to be like, okay,
that's
I
cool.
let me do like a like sometimes you have to like check your own privilege, but also like check your own mental availability. And I was able to sit there and be like, is it more stressful for me to get on the internet and look up how do I teach phonics and dig through all
Right.
that crap? Or can I take this workbook and flip through it and, modify whatever I think I need to modify and things like that over the next couple of years? And it was amazing, but I literally stumbled upon that idea. I never would have been sitting on my couch Googling, how do I help my 5-year-old understand blended letters? Um, and then been like, oh, I should just buy homeschool curriculum because it's
See,
like
I
you
think
don't think of things that are outside of your circle. And so
well, yeah. And you
it's
also
just
don't
mind
always
blowing.
prioritize things until all of a sudden they are a priority.
Valid.
Like,
I
I
didn't know
feel
that
like
I needed
we
to.
didn't care enough about utensils for my
Yeah.
daughter until we went to Italy, and they everywhere we went, they just gave her a her-sized
Yeah.
fork. I
That was
cannot say that
metal.
word. Fork. And
You
they gave
say it
her a
better than both of
metal
our children, though, because both
fork.
of our children cuss when they say it.
Well, my daughter says pork,
Oh no,
actually.
we have
But,
a
so
we
they
have a
gave her
U
one
sound
and
in ours.
she used it, and we didn't have anything like that, and we didn't care about anything like that. I thought she was gonna use her hands to eat for, like, ever, and so we,
Nope.
like, come back to America, and I'm like, she wouldn't eat without her
Yeah.
pork. Where's her pork? And I had to, like, research and try to find, like, age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, like,
Yeah.
utensils. And, when I say
Well, see,
research
and
and
then
find, I
me.
mean, it took me about 15 minutes while also fielding off 9 snack requests. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just one of those things where I didn't care about it till I cared about it, you
Yeah,
know?
well, and that is true. Things like run up on you because you're focusing, and that kind of goes back to the survival techniques of like you're just focusing on the here and now, and sometimes you don't think ahead. And that is something that I really appreciate about having friends who have kids of different ages who can say like
Yeah. And
wait
even
till you
mom
get to this
influencers
phase. Yeah, mom influencers, other moms,
who have the
podcasts about
foresight.
moms like because my youngest never wanted to use silverware that looked different than what his favorite person in the world was using, daddy. So he had to have a metal fork like his father, and
Right.
we had to really navigate that to make sure that it was safe, because it wasn't a battle that we really wanted to fight, because we knew that there's no true harm in it, but we still had to be very careful. And because of that, you have to kind of modify other things, like you can have this, but you have to sit very still and you have to watch for these things. um
Which brings me to
oh no.
just because it's trendy doesn't mean it's the best thing for your family.
Valid, super valid.
My child lives and dies by whether or not her toddler tower is out that day. She is a up high girl. She wants to be at the kitchen counter. She wants to see what you're doing. She wants to watch you chop onions. She wants to, oh my goodness, yesterday I let her put raw chicken tenders in an instant pot because she just wanted to help. And that was the only thing I was doing. I was just
And
putting
then you
chicken
just
in an
rub
instant
her
pot. You know what I
down.
mean? Like I wasn't doing anything that she could really help me with. So I
Oh, but
just let her
she
do it.
knows,
And then I just
man.
like, power washed the salmonella off of her. But, and so it's like one of those things where it's like, that is a crutch in our lives. That
Mhm.
is such an important part of our lives. So we got like a collapsible one. Actually, you got it for us. And
Well, you found it.
it's
That's what's
been so
funny.
nice.
You found it from
And then I
Instagram.
just
I just went over to our store.
sent you to get it, because they didn't have any at our store. But you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where it's like that has become so crucial for our lives.
Yeah.
But her little best friend, who is 2 weeks older than her, not interested, doesn't care, afraid
Well,
of it. Her mom
even
can't,
my
her
son
mom's pregnant and she can't pick her up and down all the
to get in
times
it.
that the daughter decides that she wants to be up and down a million times. And so they are selling theirs. They're like, this was such a huge waste of money. They're about to move. We're not moving this big
Yeah.
thing. Like, and it's just one of those things where it's like, until she tried it, she might not have ever known that that
Yeah.
wasn't going to work for
Well,
them.
and like
And that sucks.
it's
But at the same
interesting because
time,
how things like that overlap because both boys at my house love it and love doing it to help things, but have no desire to cook with it. They want to be up high at daddy's desk. They want to be up high decorating their Christmas tree. They want to be up high
ooh, I
pretending to
haven't thought of
hang
other
picture
uses for
frames.
it.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a huge up high thing. I actually also use it to contain both of them if I'm trying to mop the floor around them.
Please climb up into your tower and play castle. Thank you.
The floor is lava. Get inside. Get inside the boat. Um, but no, I mean, so it's one of those things where like tools work differently for you as
Oh,
needed,
yeah.
and like we were just talking about this. The like your husband was wanting, what was it? Your husband wanted a noggle. Is that what they're called? But then I was like, just
Yes.
use a stroller fan,
Right, right. Like,
and it's
he
like
was
you
talking
need to
about
cool your child
how
down.
it's like 155 degrees where we are, and you
No
cannot.
exaggeration at all.
I'm not even joking. We have a heat advisory today. It was 82 degrees at 6 a.m. this morning. It is
Whoa,
so hot. It is
no way.
so hot. And my sweet baby girl, by the time you buckle her in, which she is also in a do it herself mode. So by
The
the time
worst
she
phase ever.
buckles herself in, it's a fine stage when the temperature is mild outside.
Or when it's
But when
not
you are
pouring
standing
rain.
outside in 155 degrees while your child tries to buckle their own seatbelt for 10 minutes and you're both just melting
Can I
and the
give
car
you
is not even running. I'm going to start
well,
turning the car on and then, doing it.
what I was
But
gonna tell you
anyway,
to
it's a
do,
whole thing. So
what
he's
I was
like,
gonna
"We
tell
need
you to
one of
do.
those noggles."
Oh, a knuckle.
And he wants me to go get one. And I
No.
was like, looking for one when I talked to you and you were like, "What are you using your old stroller fan for?" And I'm like, "That is genius, but it may not work." Because if
Yeah.
you move molten lava at a slightly faster speed, it's still going to be molten lava.
That's true. No, you're supposed to don't put it where it's blowing on her. Put it on, does your car have the vents in the back seat?
Well, yeah, but she's
Put
in
it
her
in front of
command
the vent.
chair.
Put it in front of the vent so it's blowing further, more forceful air. Maybe.
I don't
I don't
know if
know.
that's going to work.
But then again,
We'll
I
see.
think it's
We'll see.
funny
We're
because
going to try it out.
you just mentioned stroller, and I haven't touched mine in months now because we just got one of those Academy sports wagons.
Oh my gosh,
Because
we use our stroller
well,
every single day.
well, here's the problem. I have a 5-year-old who takes the stroller and pushes his brother into things. So now they can both get in the wagon, and I don't have to keep up with two of them.
See, I wonder how like fundamental some of those things are, like multiple children versus only child, city versus country,
Yeah, that's true.
living, like multi-level house versus single story house. Like there's got to be some
Yeah.
correlations there, but that's why you have
How
to try
many
to
baby
find
gates
something.
do you think we have right now?
You what?
How many baby gates do you think we have right now?
One at least on your stairs, I would think.
We have 4.
Well, we have three.
But we only had one until last week, and now we have
Oh, wow.
four because the boys want to go onto the front and to the back porches as much as they want to, and it's
And
okay
your
for them
your
to.
doors don't lock?
Well, they do, but they want to go outside and stand on the porch and blow bubbles. And I'm okay with them doing that while, because we have one of those meshes so that we can make sure no bugs come in and we can keep the door open. And I
Oh,
have
yeah.
no problem with them doing that, except that I didn't want them making escapes towards the mailbox because the mailbox is, the Bermuda Triangle of children. Um, and so we just gated our
What a
stuff so now they
phrase.
can't get out. It's true. Like, no matter what they're doing, they just get drawn to the
So you put a
mailbox.
baby gate on the entrance to your porch.
Yep, to both of them.
Wow. That is smart. That's smart
Yeah. So
thinking.
now and we have a
So it can
sunshade
be
on our back porch.
inside while outside.
Yeah, we
Outside.
have a ceiling.
Outside and inside at the same time.
And our back porch has a ceiling fan and a sunshade, so like if it's too hot but they're desperate to play bubbles, then I can sit underneath the ceiling fan and we can put the sunshade down and we can all be out there together.
Mm,
Or I can cook lunch in peace with the
well,
door open.
well, you got eyes and ears on them, but they're not within arm reach, and they don't have to be because there's a gate.
Exactly. So I mean, I do
Cool.
think, I don't know. I feel like the last couple of weeks, maybe because I have two surgeries coming up, maybe just because it's summer and it feels like there's just something different in the air. Like when there's
It's
so
heat.
much, well, it's humidity. But no, I
Ice
just think
creams and
that like
murders, okay?
I
Heat
think
leads
there's
to ice
just
creams and murders.
the children discovering the out of doors again is a whole nother ball game. And so you have like lots of high energy and lots of other things going on. And at our house, we have a garden. Oh my goodness. Can I please tell you this? It is completely off the rails. I
I
planted,
mean,
I
so
planted
is this whole episode.
three cucumbers, like three cucumber plants from seed. Everything in my garden's from seed this year. Which I'm very proud of. But I planted three cucumber plants from seed. And then I gave one cucumber seed to my 5-year-old.
One packet of seeds or one seed?
One seed. One seed. This child got one seed out of a cucumber that he ate for lunch, buried it in a pile of weeds, and put a little green sticker in it that says that it's his cucumber. And his cucumber is growing better than my cucumber. Two of my plants did not even sprout. I had to go back and replant. But
Oh my
his
gosh.
cucumber, I would talk about a green thumb. I have to go through there now with gloves and make sure that none of those things are like poison ivy and things like that. Um, because I didn't really care. He was just like, I need to put this in the ground, and I was like, sure, why not? But it's like, you just,
I mean,
I
you
don't
should
know.
follow his instincts next
I
time.
was, I was about to say, forget
You
the
gotta,
garden. I'll
you
just
gotta play
follow
you
you
straight.
around the yard. To be fair, though, he also did bury two apple seeds in gravel and ask me when the tree would give him apples, and I was like, in 300 years.
Probably when we move it to the orchard. That's gonna help. Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, this got a little off the rails, but it's really exciting because I don't know.
I
I
mean, I
think
think it's just
there's
one of those things where you could you could follow every influencer, and there might be one that you relate to, or you have similar lifestyles to, or
or
your
you can read.
child ends up likes their child, which you have no control over.
Yeah. Or
Like,
you can read every single book. I mean, like the amount of parenting books I own is crazy because it's my job and my profession. And I would argue that I don't parent exactly from one book. Like you could read that book, the book that I quote parent closest to, which I don't wouldn't even know what that is right now, and you still wouldn't have a full grasp of everything we do, if that makes sense. And I think
yeah.
it's so fascinating. Um
Is
I don't
there
know. I just
something to knowing that everyone is using all these different so-called must-have products, and all of these children are thriving and alive and growing up happy and satisfied no matter what you got? Like, is there something
yeah.
to letting it go and getting what works for you, even if it may not be the absolute bestest tool of the trade?
No,
or
for
it
real.
may not even be the best one for you, but it works. Like, we cannot find a leak-proof sippy cup to save our lives. And so
Don't
at
worry
this
about it,
point,
man.
we're just rotating through which one we hate less that week.
I like it.
And so it's like, what works for me is not spending $500 on trying different cups. What works for me is just like slowly inching closer to her being able to use a real cup.
Well, what I will add on to that and say what worked for me was buying a bunch of the cheap, kind of taller cups with plastic lids and straws, and I just start the morning drinking water out of one of them, and then he demands that he wants mommy's cup, and then I just give it to him, and he hydrates all day long because he enjoys the fact that he took my
But
cup from me, and
your
then
child still
voila.
gets milk out of a boob, which results in much less carpet being ruined.
Yeah, that is true. Don't give anybody,
So,
never give anybody milk in anything. Oh, and
well, that's the thing is you have to. Like,
if I have
those of
one
us
piece of
whose breasts do
information,
not make milk have to give them whole milk in a cup that is going to get left on the floor unless you follow them around constantly. And so you have, like,
right?
if that cup leaks, it's a problem. And I hate
Yeah.
it. But you know
See,
what?
problems
I'm
I
just
never
rotating
thought
through which
about.
one I hate less.
There you go. I
But you
like
know what I
it.
mean? Like, that's the whole point is like, we just
There
try to
is
make a
no
no milk on the
one
couch
must
rule
have.
and we just move
Yeah.
past.
Well, and there is no one must have because I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, I have cups that I could probably recommend to you, but I don't know if your daughter would ever drink out of them, and I
And
don't
you
know.
don't know if they're the best for oral development. And you don't know if
Well,
milk
and I
is
also
different
don't
than
know if
water
they
in them
can
because milk
survive.
and water are different densities, and that makes a difference. We
Yeah,
have lots of
exactly.
cups that are water leak proof, but when you take cold milk as it warms up to room temperature, because toddlers get distracted, they start leaking.
That's so
It's wild.
fascinating. It is really interesting. That's your next engineering feat is how do you
I've
make a
seriously
sippy
thought
cup
about it.
that's safe?
I
You're a water
literally
engineer, that counts,
said
right?
to my husband over the weekend that maybe I just won't go back to work this fall. And instead, I will design the perfect cup, the
There you go.
perfect milk cup. That might be what I
Well,
do.
I kid you not. I go through parenting courses like it's my job because it is my job. And there are moments where I'm like, I could make this course better. And then there's moments where like, I need to write this down. This person is a genius. And it's
Right?
just
I
like,
mean,
it really depends because everyone's doing their best with what they have.
and
And
sometimes the
it's
tool that's
not,
best for you is the closest tool. And sometimes the tool that's best for you is the best design tool. And sometimes the tool that's best for you is the one that protects everyone from harm. And sometimes it's not. You can kill a fly with a shoe or a fly swatter or a $70 million bug zapper. You know,
well, and
you
I
can kill a
wanted
fly with a car if you drive fast enough. You know what I mean? Like, and
car.
there's lots of different tools. It's just which one meets your goals
Yeah.
and doesn't blow everything else out of the water. I think that
Well,
is
and
like the biggest key.
I was going to end on this story because I also believe that you should use what's in your environment as a tool. And my 2-year-old was having a really hard time at the grocery store the other day. And my husband was with me, which doesn't always happen. Like, usually we try to go grocery shopping together and then just sometimes we can't. And I will say the trips by myself with the toddler are a lot quicker because I'm just like, we're going, we're going, we're going. But
The same thing happens to us.
my husband's a little bit more leisurely. And so I forgot to budget that extra hour that we were going to be there. And so it got too close to like lunchtime and nap time. And my son probably had like his first real, like, complete meltdown toddler. He like put his head on the concrete floor and everything. Um, and so I was like, I can't do this anymore. I tagged in my husband. And I kept grocery shopping because I had the list and I just wanted to finish up. And I come back and it's been over a half hour. And they are in the baby food aisle. And you know how there's like the organic baby food with the refrigerator that's got the little sliding door? I don't know if your grocery store
Ours
has
does
that.
not have this.
So ours
No.
has like the full refrigerated, you have to keep the baby food completely refrigerated, no preservatives area. And
It's
it
not
has
just
a
buy your yogurt.
sliding no, it has like a sliding refrigerator door instead of the open and closed ones.
Hmm.
And I found them there And they had been doing that for 30 minutes. And my son had gone from full meltdown, starving and exhausted, to gleefully giggling back and forth with this refrigerator door. And
What the heck?
my husband was like, it worked, dude. Like, he's okay. Now we're going to get in the car. He's going to go home and go to sleep after a snack in the car. He's going to be fine. And it was just one of those things where I had this moment of just like, yep, sometimes you use what's around you. Like, sometimes you just have to pay attention. And that was what my husband said. He said, I looked around and I noticed that he was enjoying like trying to get to this refrigerator. And he's like, so I just showed him how to open the door.
That's a whole other podcast episode on saying yes when there's no reason to say no.
Oh, yes. No,
That's
that
one
is a
of
podcast
that's
episode.
one of the most favorite things I've learned about communicating with toddlers is if you can say yes, like when there's
Just
no
do the
reason to
thing.
say no,
Well,
just do the thing.
that's why we put a gate on our back porch, because the amount of times that I have to say no to Bubbles because I need to load the dishwasher or
Be
I have
inside
water
because that's
boiling
where
and
all the
I'm
stuff is.
yes, that's where everything's happening. If you want food for lunch, I have to be inside to make the food. So now it's like, yes, go outside, play Bubbles. I'll be right here.
I
Um
love that.
so
So,
well, I appreciate you um sitting here with my rambling and in random
oh
tangents about
man, there's
things.
so many giggles in this episode.
We're loosey goosey, probably because
Sometimes
both of
you
our
just
children slept.
yes, vibes.
Well, you're a good mom, no matter what tools you're using to get through the week.
Thank you. You're a good mom. Talk to you later.